Hello, and welcome to the Election Protection Podcast. This is Josh Finlay, and here we talk all things election integrity. We're joined today by West Virginia Secretary of State, Kris Warner. Secretary, thanks for joining us.
Josh, it's good to see you again. I'm joining you from Canaan Valley in Tucker County, West Virginia. We have a statewide election conference going on right now, so just to add 200 people here from all 55 counties.
I love it. Well, thank you for taking time out of that conference to join us. And Secretary, you're in kind of a unique position. A lot of times when we talk to elected officials on here, we ask them about their priorities and things that they want to change going into office. You, however, were preceded by a pretty good Secretary of State that you know well. So in lieu of going through biographies here, do you mind taking a second and just telling our listeners a little bit about how you got in politics, how you decided to run for Secretary of State and your interest in elections, and then about your relationship with the previous Secretary of State in West Virginia?
You know, my dad, Josh, was Justice of the Peace many years ago. That switched to the magistrate system in West Virginia. So we were involved as kids. There were 6 brothers. And if Dad was running for office for magistrate or the House of Delegates, which he served in both of those roles, quite frankly, back before it was cool to be a Republican in West Virginia, it took every one of us to be out on the campaign trail. But I ran for state chairman when I was at WVU in school there, and was elected after being the county chairman in Monongalia County. And the thing that we did that stood out was we challenged every one of the 117 races for the state legislature in West Virginia. And we decided we were going to help out. In addition to challenging every one of those races, we were going to help raise the money to elect Republicans. So as a county chairman, a state chairman, and then as national committee man, those all volunteer roles, as you well know. And I, in fact, recruited my older brother, Mac, the previous Secretary of State. He was in Afghanistan. His family wanted him to come home. He had been there 5 years. We recruited him because we thought he would do the best job, and he upset an incumbent and served 2 terms. And I was in a similar situation. I just thought that we could do better than what it looked like was going to be the most likely candidate to take Mac's place when he ran for governor. And I ran for office to continue my service. I'd been the state director for USDA Rural Development, and then as the executive director of the West Virginia Economic Development Authority. So the first under President Trump, the second under now Senator Justice, then Governor Justice.
So you come to us with a lot of West Virginia experience, and we've just got to say your brother Mac was an incredible Secretary of State, has just done amazing work on election integrity, and now over at the Department of Justice, he's doing great things. Secretary Warner, we know you took office earlier this year. I mean, you were just elected. What have been your election integrity priorities coming into this year?
I've got to first of all step back and tell you that Mac built an unbelievable staff here at the Secretary of State's office in West Virginia. It's allowed us to continue and focus on the things that were important during those 8 years. So this is a continuation, if you will, of that administration and the things that he did differently to focus on election integrity and fair, safe, secure, and honest elections in West Virginia.
That's great. That's great. So one thing, the reason I love thinking about West Virginia is because I come from Georgia originally, right? And like West Virginia, for a long time, Georgia was a Democrat state, right? It was controlled by the left. And then almost overnight, it flipped, or at least in a very short amount of time, it flipped. West Virginia is now an incredibly conservative state, like Georgia was for a while. I think it's going a little bit more purple. But as you've done this transition away from a state of leftist policies and becoming more conservative in things, what have you noticed that you've had to clean up with your elections potentially, or looking forward, what are some changes that you want to make?
You know, one of the things that I want to make sure that we continue, and we all know that list maintenance is extremely important And in the previous 8 years, the office, working with our 55 county clerks, have removed over 440,000 names from our voting rolls. So whether those are those that have moved out of state or are deceased, we've worked really hard at that, and we're going to continue to work on list maintenance and the focus with election integrity will be a focus for us.
That's amazing. Just recently, the president came out with his statement about mail-in voting. And one thing that I've never been able to square with the left is how they will be constantly against voter ID when you register. They will be against cleaning up voter rolls, maintaining your voter rolls accurately, and yet they want to mail everyone a ballot. How can you expect to have, secure, transparent elections? Those three policies just don't square to me. So cleaning 440,000 people off your rolls, that's just incredible work.
I gotta tell you, we worked successfully with the state legislature, Josh, in this last session to pass photo ID in West Virginia. I know 23 other states have photo ID, but we allowed 17 different forms of identification, all paper forms of identification. So I think we're now, mainstream on the idea of photo ID. We also, in both the federal constitution and the state constitution, we don't allow non-citizens to vote in our statewide elections, but we had some municipalities that were looking at, quite frankly, Washington, D.C. and a city in California and Maryland and Vermont. And so we wanted to be preemptive, and we were able to work with both the House and the Senate, and the governor signed a bill that outlaws non-citizen voting in West Virginia. So that'll, because our cities have home rule, they were toying around, and we went ahead and took that preemptive action to help with election integrity and security in that manner as well.
Well, and that's so important. It's funny, we call those on this podcast 80% issues, right? If you talk to your random person, 80% of people agree that you should have voter ID to vote, and yet states still need to pass these laws. So thanks to you in the legislature for doing that. Another thing that I know has been a priority for you, something that we talk a lot about on this podcast, is poll workers and the importance of citizens getting involved. And you've made some big pushes to get more poll workers involved. Tell us about your emphasis on poll workers and why it's so important.
We just had, this National Poll Worker Recruitment Day on August 12th. So every opportunity our communications department has, I think there were probably 15 radio interviews, multiple TV interviews. We talk about how important it is to spread the net wide to recruit poll workers. And we have a site in West Virginia, an online portal that we go to, govotewv.com, govotewv.com. And so if someone wants to be a poll worker, they can register there. We then share that information in a timely fashion with the county clerks, and they share that with the political parties who in West Virginia are responsible for finding those poll workers. We have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats in each poll. It takes over 8,255 poll workers in 1,651 precincts to run an election in West Virginia. So in a small state, we start early. It's 9 months out, and we do it every opportunity we have a chance.
Well, and it's not easy to get around in that state, right? Some places, it's just a matter of going up the street to your polling location. But I've had the privilege, I would say, of driving all over West Virginia, and sometimes it's not that easy to get around. So it's a lot of lift in West Virginia to get that done. So that's great.
We're also working on a poll worker recognition bill. We're exploring, how we might be able to do that, and the possibility of incentive pay for those that have been a poll worker for 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years.
Well, and we love that because it supports continuity. That's just exceptional.
They've already been trained, and it's great to have their leadership back, especially as we are working to bring the younger generation in. We just think it's extremely important for people when they go into the polls to have that confidence when they see someone that they know from their community or their same age. And so we're working in the high schools as well with the Jennings Randolph Award, named after our U.S. Senator that allowed 18-year-olds the right to vote. And then we talk to them about being poll workers, and when they learn that they can get paid for that, we're getting some interest in the younger generation.
Well, I know we've talked about this a lot on this podcast previously, but one thing that I've had on the wall in every office that I've been in since I've worked in election integrity is this saying that says you can find a conspiracy anywhere if you don't know how things work. And the best way to get people to know about how our elections work is to actually serve a role in the election process.
You are exactly right. And I've had the opportunity, when you get an opportunity to speak in our communities, there's always someone out there wanting to tell you about all the ways that you can cheat. And I ask them, have you been a poll worker? And that normally quietens it some. But once you're a poll worker, you understand all the checks and balances that are in place. And it's not as easy to talk about how the election's been stolen, at least in our state in West Virginia.
That's right. So switching gears a little bit, as one of the national leaders in election integrity and among secretaries of state, you were invited recently to go to the White House for a meeting with other secretaries of state. Tell us a little bit about that meeting and kind of the safeguards that y'all discussed and the needs among secretaries of state to help secure our elections.
Well, we were talking about voter roll list maintenance again, Josh, at the White House, and talking about the SAVE. People call it a database, but it's a list query that can be used to check non-citizens against our voter rolls. But right now in West Virginia, we're using the Social Security Administration as a way to check and to make sure that we've got the right people on the voter rolls. We use the United States Postal Service as a way to see who is changing their address, and if we think that they've moved out of state, that's another security measure. The United States Postal Service for change of address forms. We have agreements right now with neighboring states and states that people might move if they're leaving West Virginia, Tennessee, Florida, Virginia. So we have list share agreements with those states. We work with the Division of Corrections to see who the felons are and match those against our voter list. So that's extremely important. We think we're already doing a great job in West Virginia, but it was good to be at the White House and hear the concerns. We have an issue right now with, and I know it's being worked on by the White House. We were reassured of that. We only, in the Secretary of State's office in West Virginia, only have access to the last 4 digits on those Social Security numbers. And so being able to integrate and use the SAVE list query, we're still ready to onboard and do that as soon as we get an opportunity. But we're finding ways to make that work until we're able to fully use that SAVE list query.
Well, and I've heard the federal government under this administration has got a lot better about sharing lists and making things more accessible and things like that. As a Secretary of State, do you feel, is there one more database that you wish you had access to, or do you feel like the federal government is doing a good job of sharing everything at its disposal with the secretaries right now?
Well, again, we're anxious, with the offer of being able to use the SAVE database. We think that will be an additional level of security. My concern, quite frankly, as Secretary of State in a state where Montani semper liberi, mountaineers are always free, I'm concerned about the list that might get shared back, and we'll do exactly what the law says when it comes to sharing our list back with the federal government.
Oh, well, that's great. That's great. So I'm curious, as you were sitting there with those other secretaries of state, or maybe as you look around the country, do you think about other secretaries of state, maybe who have been in a hair longer than you, and think, boy, that state is doing it right, or that's a policy that we should put in place, or that's a state that we should look at, maybe partnering with on things?
The National Association of Secretaries of State have been tremendous in the meetings that have already been set up to be able to learn from our fellow secretaries of state. Michael Watson is doing a phenomenal job in Mississippi. Diego Morales in Indiana is doing a phenomenal job. We have an attorney, Secretary of State next door in Kentucky that I've worked with, and next door in Ohio as well. So those states they're all getting it done. Again, we've got to follow the law, and we'll continue to do that right here in West Virginia.
That's great. I know you touched on this a little bit, but you previously served as a state political party chair. Mm-hmm. And for our listeners that don't know, in most states, the political party has an official role when it comes to election integrity. They're responsible for either placing poll workers and poll watchers, or they're in charge of parity for poll workers and poll watchers, things like that. How did that kind of unique background help prepare you to be Secretary of State and kind of understand what parties have to go through when filling these roles and filling their responsibilities when it comes to elections?
Oh, I learned at an early age as a county chairman in Monongalia County. We were responsible for the poll workers, and I asked all my executive committee members for a list of the poll workers in each of the precincts. They gave them to me, and again, as a young 20-something-year-old, I proceeded to just list every one of those names that had been submitted to me and filled in precinct 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and turned it into the county clerk. My mistake was they all wanted to work in the same poll that they had been, the same precinct that they had been in for the last 20 years, and I had not placed them in that proper order. And so for at least the next 2 years, every time I was out at a picnic or whatever, I had my rear end chewed out for not putting the poll worker in the right precinct because they had to drive across the county last time. So we won't make that mistake again. But no, stepping through the process as a county chair and as a state chair, you understand the importance and how hard these county clerks and their deputy chiefs work and their elections divisions work. So I have the utmost respect for them. We've just finished a 55 county tour to all county clerks, and they've opened up, and their staffs, more importantly, have opened up and told us exactly how we might be able to do things a little bit better. So we respect. They're the real chief election officials. I know they say that I'm the chief election official in West Virginia, but we've got 55 county clerks that are the real chief election officials in their counties.
Well, so I'm just curious. One thing that at the Election Protection Project that we focus on all the time is election administration and really working with those election officials. I'm curious, what was the feedback that they gave you on this 55 county tour? Because I don't think most secretaries of state go to the trouble to meet with local election officials at that level.
They've just pointed out, we're going through a process right now, where we're changing the campaign finance reporting system, our SVRS system, and so they've been very vocal about what they have been working with and what they expect in new systems. So we've heard them. They're loud and clear. We're fortunate to be working with a new provider on the SVRS system that is listening to those county clerks. In fact, they're here today, And it's been a great exchange. But I think most importantly is that they know that they can pick up the phone and we can talk at any time. And we extended that to the staff members as well, just not the 55 county clerks.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, Secretary Warner, you've been incredibly generous with your time. I'd like to end with two questions. First one, I'm going to put the ball in your court. What is something that you'd like our listeners to know about election integrity in West Virginia, or what they can anticipate from you going forward?
I would just tell folks that we have training for our poll workers. We put a lot of information out, printed material. Everybody that is here today has a very thick binder. Again, our focus is making it easy to vote and hard to cheat. But every one of the folks here also have access digitally to everything they're learning in the conference. We share lots of videos that have been prepared, and they can pick and choose. So we have a dozen or more videos that are short videos, easy to understand. But we think that all of this helps with, the confidence when you step into the polling place, and then when unofficial results come out on election night or 10 days later when the audit is complete. I'd want people to know in West Virginia, every way that we have to vote, whether you're military and overseas, absentee vote, or voting on election day, a paper ballot trail exists for every vote that is made in West Virginia. And so we're prepared as we watch with interest the president's executive order and how that's unpacked and how it's treated by the court system. We're ready to go forward for 2026, no matter what may come at us.
I love that. And the last question, we had Michael Watson on actually to talk about kind of the executive order and some of the things that he's been working on and how that executive order's affected his state. We like to be a little bit predictive here with all of our guests. So as we go into a very competitive midterms, what are your predictions for 2026 as far as election integrity? Right? How that executive order will play out, or issues that we should all be on the lookout for.
I learned a long time. I'm not going to make predictions, going forward. I just know that we are prepared no matter what happens. If we would go to a paper ballot that has to be hand marked and hand counted, if that's the case, we have over 900 different ballot styles in West Virginia. And we're going to be ready to carry out if that's what we need to do. But right now, our election machines and scanners have not been decertified by the EAC. So we plan to move ahead, and we're making sure all of our clerks and staff are ready to go with the system that has been in place before here in West Virginia.
Wonderful. Well, Secretary Warner, thank you for joining us.
Josh, good to see you again, and hope to see you soon.
Great to see you too. This has been Josh Finlay with the Election Protection Podcast. Thank you.